The markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Mai Rodriguez. Catch up with us on Business Brief. Asian shares are mostly higher following a third consecutive winning week on Wall Street. Markets in Japan, meanwhile, remain closed for a holiday after the ruling Liberal Democratic Party lost its coalition majorities in both houses of parliament for the first time since 1955. The election results highlight voter frustration over rising prices and ongoing political instability. Analysts anticipate that the weakened government may increase spending, further adding to Japan's already massive debt burden. Australia's ASX is in the red, while the rest are currently in the green. In the currency markets, the US dollar is flat against the Thai baht and the Hong Kong dollar, and it depreciates against the Japanese yen, the Singapore dollar, and the South Korean won. In commodities, gold prices are up by 0.4%, while oil markets are mixed. In the cryptocurrency space, both Bitcoin and Ethereum are up. President Bongbong Marcos is set to meet with top U.S. officials today. On the second day of his official visit, Marcos will hold talks with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to strengthen defense cooperation. He is seeking U.S. support to boost the capabilities of the armed forces of the Philippines and the Philippine Coast Guard. On the final day of his trip, Marcos will meet with U.S. President Donald Trump, with discussions expected to focus on economic ties, defense, and regional security.
Bargaining chip is probably not the right word. What would be good for both our countries? We have to look at relationships now in a different light. I think what's important is what is going to be good for us is what we're going to negotiate on. And the other side, meaning the United States, will also do what they can as far as what they're concerned and they feel is it is also in their national interest. So in other words, para magkatugma yung relationship, kailangan tama lang for both sides. So we have to always think on those bases now. Hindi na pwede yung anong pwede natin makuha sa isang bayan. Kailangan ano yung tama para sa dalawa. Pero most important, yung anong mas mabuti para sa atin. We're hoping that the free trade agreement would probably come into play. If you remember, during the first administration, there was already conversations surrounding the FTA, and we were in the process of actually going in that direction. But that changed, obviously, with the new administration. But now we're bringing that back into play, and hopefully we'll be able to come out with something that will be mutually agreeable for both the United States and the Philippines on the free trade agreement.
The Employers Confederation of the Philippines is expressing concern over the new tariff increase, pointing out that the Philippines has been put at a disadvantage compared to other Asian countries. In an interview on BNC's Business 360, ECOP President Sergio Ortiz Luis noted that Trump imposing similar tariff rates for countries with different market shares in the U.S. may be bad for the Philippines.
What is really discouraging is that Vietnam, who coming from 46%, was brought down to the same level as ours, 20%.
Yeah.
And that will be something that a bad sign, because everybody's negotiating on the side. In the second half, what we're worrying is the tariff of the other competitors might be lowered. And the ones of Vietnam, even without the lowering of the tariff, we're hardly being able to compete with them. With the same tariff as ours, with the support that they have, which we do not get from the government right now.
He also questioned the government's strategy to lower duties on some U.S. products, saying it might not be worth the risks, especially for agriculture. He calls on the government to reinvest in export development and make the country more competitive in the global market. The U.S. remittance tax could trim Philippine remittance growth by 0.5 percentage point. That's according to the Bangko Sentral, which says the estimate is still very preliminary as the full impact is under study. BSP Deputy Governor Zeno Abenoja notes that remittance behavior could still change depending on whether U.S. institutions absorb the added tax or pass it on to senders. However, this key factor remains uncertain. The Philippine poverty rate dropped to just over 15% in 2023. Data from the Philippine Statistics Authority shows this is an improvement from 18.1% in 2021. It translates to 17.54 million Filipinos living below the poverty line, down from 19.99 million 2 years earlier. The Department of Economy, Planning and Development, or DepDev, says the decline marks significant progress towards the Marcos administration's goal of reducing poverty to single digits by 2028. Spending on construction projects declined in May. PSA data shows the total value of approved construction projects reached 42.09 billion pesos, lower than the 54.48 billion recorded in the same month last year. This despite a slight increase in the number of approved building permits, which rose to over 16,200 from just above 16,100 a year ago. The PSA clarified that these figures represent approved permits, not completed projects. It offers a glimpse into upcoming construction activity amid cautious developers and steady demand for housing. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council confirms 2 out of 5 fatalities due to severe tropical storm Crising and the enhanced southwest monsoon. More than 200,000 families have been affected in 16 regions across the country, and more than 1,000 homes were damaged. Meanwhile, the Public Works Department reports damage to infrastructure is worth $500 million pesos. We are taking a short break. More business stories are up next. You're watching Business Week. Ambassador to the U.S., Jose Manuel Romualdez, warns thousands of undocumented Filipinos in the U.S. could be deported due to tighter immigration policies of the Trump administration. The ambassador says nearly 4,000 undocumented Filipinos are now on the Immigration and Customs Enforcement radar. But Romualdez said the issue might not be tackled during the meeting between President Marcos and President Trump. He calls on Filipinos who will be affected to seek the help of immigration lawyers. Microsoft issues an alert on so-called active attacks on SharePoint, a server software used by government agencies and businesses to share documents within organizations. It recommended to customers to perform security updates right away. The U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation said it is aware of the attacks, adding that it is working closely with its federal and private sector partners. Microsoft said the vulnerabilities apply only to SharePoint servers used within organizations. But SharePoint Online in Microsoft 365, which is in the cloud, was not hit by the attacks. The Washington Post reports unidentified actors in the past few days had exploited a flaw to launch an attack that targeted U.S. and international agencies and businesses. Heavy floods and recent floods in South Korea destroyed a local restaurant in the resort town of Gapyeong. 2 people had died and 4 others are still missing in the area. The Ministry of Interior and Safety reports the nationwide death toll is at 18, with 9 people still missing. There have been reports of damage to farmlands and the widespread death of livestock. Local media reports nearly 10,000 people have evacuated their homes. Tropical storm Wifa, locally known as Crising, drenched southern parts of the Chinese mainland on Monday. Heavy rain lashed cities in the southern province of Guangdong after the storm made landfall Sunday evening. Before hitting the mainland, it passed through Hong Kong and Macau. Hundreds of flights were rescheduled. The storm is expected to keep traversing southern China before heading to Vietnam. The Office of the Ombudsman suspends for 6 months GSIS President and General Manager Jose Arnulfo Wick Veloso. This is in connection with the state-run pension fund's 1.45 billion peso deal with renewable energy firm Alternergy Holdings Corporation. Ombudsman Samuel Martirez confirmed the suspension over the questionable investment agreement with the company owned by former Energy Secretary Vince Perez. Veloso had allegedly approved it without securing clearance from the GSIS board. The GSIS chief allegedly took advantage of a policy that allows investment deals under 1.5 billion pesos to bypass board review. Philippine shares closed the first trading day of the week in the green. The PSE index ended higher by nearly 0.8% to close at 63.52, finishing the day as the third best performer in Asia. Among the sectoral indices, only mining and oil ended in the red, holding firms rising the most by 0.9%. Advancers outpaced decliners at 104 to 82. Total value turnover reached 5.8 billion pesos. More than half of the day's most active stocks ended in the green, with top-line business rising the most at more than 45%. Meanwhile, the foreign exchange market, the peso, is currently trading at 57.13 against the greenback, appreciating from the previous close of 57.15. That's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Join us again tomorrow as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business, only here on the Bilyonaryo News channel. See you then.